Alrighty, let's go. Welcome everyone to ThursdAI for September 18th. My name is Alex Volkov. I'm an AI evangelist with weights and biases from CoreWeave. With me, my trusty co-host Wolfram. What's up, Wolfram?
Hi, man. You remind me that I need to get some classes.
Oh yeah, we're definitely gonna chat about this. I'm sitting here wearing my Meta Houston. And I just want to say to everyone, welcome to the stream today. Such a busy week, man. Such a busy week. It feels like the slump of the summer kind of over, and we're well into the fall craziness where people are supposed to lock in and bring a lot of AI updates, but definitely a lot on my plate. We will wait for some of the hosts, but I will say that very interestingly, we have a great interview today. You guys should stick around for. We're chatting with Jeremy Berman at the end of the second hour. Jeremy has just broke the top score on ARC-AGI. ARC-AGI is this kind of multi-model test for AIs. He broke the top score on first one, and he used Grok for it, and then Space Uncle Elon reposted everything that he did. So that's very interesting, and we will chat with him about why Grok specifically and how he did it, etc. So we're definitely going to have a very interesting conversation there. Besides this, it's been a whole week full of very interesting things, notwithstanding the Meta Connect presentation from yesterday with the AI glasses, which we've talked about before, which I'm donning right now, but I don't have the newest generation, obviously, so we're definitely going to chat about that as well. And also, always a great week when there's a new model from OpenAI. So we got Gpt-5-Codex, which we're going to also mention. Probably more and more stuff.
Open source stuff as well.
Didn't talk about it for a day, and then it was leaked, and only today, like, ta-da! Yeah, what is your go-to AI update for this week? What is the one thing that we absolutely must talk about?
The biggest highlight are the classes. I've been waiting for these for years now. I've been big into VR before AI even came out, so I trust Zuck that he knows what he's doing, and it takes longer than expected, maybe. I've even been a fan of the Google classes when they were announced a decade ago or even longer. So I was hoping for this stuff. And now Meta seems to be the first to really deliver something very great. And that is the next generation of the interface after the mobile phone. That is my personal opinion, I'm convinced of. So yeah, that is the most exciting for me.
I have signed up already for a demo because you cannot just buy them. You have to go get a demo and then buy them, apparently. And probably because they want to teach you the kind of the band control.
Neuralink. Oh, no, not Neuralink. That is Elon stuff. What is it called?
I think neural band or something.
Neural band, yeah.
Neural band, yeah. So folks who are listening and didn't tune in yesterday to the Meta Connect, the new glasses that they've announced have a screen, and the way to control the screen is with this Myo neural band. It's a company they bought like a decade ago, I think, that just reads microelectric signals from your wrist muscles and then kind of knows what you want to do, which is, I think, incredible. It's like, like an accessory. But we'll talk about all of this. I would say my highlight of the week was definitely Codex, GPT-5-Codex. It's a new tune of GPT-5 specifically for coding, and I think we've come full circle, because I remember when the first coding paradigm came out, I had a separate model. They had an autocomplete model for, I think it was GPT-3 before Instruct version, and then they had the Codex model, specific fine-tuned model for coding. Codex became the whole thing. Became a CLI, became an editor, it became the hosted Codex as well. So now there's another Codex model, and this one's great, and we're definitely gonna chat about this. Folks are switching back from Cloud Code to OpenAI's Codex in droves, I would say. So a lot is happening there, and I think it's time for us to maybe take off these glasses for now and then get started with the TLDR, because we're really going to have to chat about like a ton of stuff. I'm ready. Wolfram, you ready?
Ready. Let's go.
Alrighty, here it is, the TLDR, the section of ThursdAI where we just run through super quick everything that we found notable, and not that much discussion, just like we're gonna run through. And then if you're interested to stick around with us and then hearing our commentary about this, you're more than welcome. But if you don't have the 2 hours to sit with us. You will be up to date. This is basically the purpose of TLDR. Another purpose is structure. Folks are asking me like why, etc. This helps us structure the show for you in such a way we know what to talk about. Structure is fairly rigid. We love open source. Then we talk about big companies and LLMs and APIs. There's a lot of news there. This week's Buzz is a corner where I talk about everything weights and biases and core rule related. This week is going to be awesome with some examples. I'm looking forward for that. Then we have vision, video, voice and audio, art and diffusion and 3D. But for now, let's just run through the open source stuff. So in open source, we have a company called Perceptron AI announced Isaac 0.1. It's a 2 billion parameter perceptive language model. What does this mean? It means you can ask this model to see things and ask it where the things are. And unlike YOLO, for example, which is a dedicated model for something like this, this is a language model. And so we know, for example, that Gemini 2.5 can do this at moderate length and moderate success. This model is a tiny model, 2 billion parameter, and it's really, really good at detecting like small things in pictures. You can ask it where something is, it will put a box around it. It's really fun to play with. They also have a cool demo. The folks at Tongyi DeepResearch, I think Tongyi is also Alibaba. So Tongyi released something called DeepResearch, I think 30 billion parameter, 3 billion active parameter open source web agent that claims parity with OpenAI's DeepResearch on multiple tasks, including humanities last exam. Folks, this is crazy. The amount of times that we are here and we're telling you, hey, there used to be this multi-hundred millions of dollars trained model from a huge company, and now there's a 3 billion active parameter model that comes close on this one specific task. Every time we come around this, I was like, I want to stop. It's like, what the actual, deep research from Tongyi, 3 billion active parameter web agent. It comes close to deep research from OpenAI. So we definitely want to chat and see how that happens from Tongyi.
Mistral released 2 new models actually, but only one is open source. The Magistral small, though Magistral is their reasoning model, and they released an updated version 2509 or the version number 1.2 from them. It's Apache licensed and available on Hugging Face, of course. It has multimodality, so it can work on text and images. It has a 15% improvement on math and coding benchmarks, such as AMI and Live Code Bench. Better at tool use like web search, code interpreter, and image generation. And it should have clearer, more natural, and better formatted response. I haven't used it myself yet, so I hope it doesn't do too many bullet point stuff maybe. But if they improved it, that is a good thing. And they have the Magistral Medium 1.2 as well, which is only on the API for now.
Yeah, thank you, Wolfram. And then we'll definitely chat about and see what's new there as well. Anything else that I missed on the open source stuff?
Did we cover this one that just blew up at the top of Hugging Face?
Oh, SRPO is...
We got SRPO. Okay, we got it in the other.
Yeah, SRPO we definitely must talk about. You want to just pick it up while we're here and just like keep from there?
I literally just saw it.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah,
so we have something about this. So let's continue here in the AI art and diffusion. We'll go back. So Hunyuan, which is Tencent, released something called, they've been on fire lately. Last week we talked about a Tencent image, right? Yum, and then there's tons of stuff. So this week they have something called SRPO. This is a shortcut for semantic relative preference optimization. This is a new fine-tuning method, folks. Like this is like, they released a model and it's blowing up, but it's mostly about reinforcement learning technique for fine-tuning super quick, diffusion model super quick. If you guys remember like LoRa's and different things, this is like a technique to fine-tune. There's some examples of the model that they released. I think they fine-tuned Flux or something with only 10 minutes and then less than 1,500 images, and then significant like reduction of cost. And so there's a comparison thread we'll show you, but basically there's a new technique in the works from Tencent and also a new model to go along with it to show that you can fine-tune diffusion models super quick. Tencent, also Hunyuan, released a 3rd version of their Hunyuan 3D, and we can generate 3D images with a bunch of graphs. So definitely we'll chat about those. And while we're talking about 3D, we must show you a demo of World Labs Marble. We've chatted about World Labs. We've chatted about Dr. Fei Li, one of the pioneers of AI. World Labs released examples, and also I got into the waitlist of Marble. So Wolfram, I was actually thinking about if you have a origin image of the spaceship that you're sitting in, then we can maybe turn this into a 3D model and try that out live on the show
yeah.
later. So
Cool idea.
So if you guys remember, we talked about Genie 3 before. This is a little bit different. Genie 3 generates kind of like a playing world. They generate a splat, Gaussian splat that you can with AI. It's like super cool. And then Reve. Have you guys heard about Reve? Reve? No. Okay. There's a new model in town, a visual platform. It's called Reve. One of the folks, Christian Contrell, who was a chief product, I think, at Stability at some point, he's leading kind of the charge there. Reve is their new editing model. So, folks, like this is like the third week in a row we're getting close to state-of-the-art image editing AI tooling. I think the third week in a row, right? We got Nano Banana like a month ago, I want to say, or maybe 3 weeks ago to a month ago. Then we got Seedream. The last Seedream was at 4, and now we're getting Reve. And I planned the thumbnail for the show I created with Reve, and I recorded it myself. And we definitely should play around with this, all of us on stage, because it's just incredible. They have, besides the model itself, they have a very innovative interface of creating AI art that you can like drag objects around, detect objects. It's super cool. I'll have to show you. And then we're going back. And here, and Yam, you wanna chat about this?
Sure. So OpenAI gives us GPT-5-Codex, which is a fine-tuned model from GPT-5 for coding. Just like we had the initial codex, but there are like 5 different things called codex. But you get the point. We had another codex fine-tuned model specifically for agentic coding that is absolutely successful, by the way. And now we have an updated one based on GPT-5.
We talked to folks here. Codex is definitely worth at least 2 sentences. We chatted with you guys and told you that many people are switching away from Cloud Code into Codex, the CLI tool or the extension. Even before this new model, the world has changed and people like moving towards, and we had this discussion now. And now even more, because they have like a, they're gunning out from Anthropic.
Mm-hmm. The thing about this is that what is special about this model, just from experience, is that it doesn't lose track, even if the task is extremely long. It can go on for long and not lose track of the task. And, with itself, you just look from afar and make sure that nothing breaks. With Claude, your computer might be destroyed in the process pretty fast. And everyone knows that you're absolutely right kind of thing that Claude is doing is because, well, Claude is making mistakes, then you correct it, and everyone already saw that you were absolutely right from Claude. Anyway, absolutely go try it. It's absolutely great. GPT-5-Codex, for sure.
Many folks have tried it, enough so that OpenAI said, whoops, we're out of GPUs. We're going to lower the speed for 2x. And then they brought it up, and then they gave everybody back their quota.
I think it has been a huge week for OpenAI, actually, because I had some other stuff noted. For instance, that GPT-5 achieved, as I know, the first model, superhuman coding ability with a perfect score in the ICPC World Finals. Have you seen that? So that is a premier collegiate programming competition where the top university teams around the world compete to solve complex algorithmic problems. Mm-hmm. And both Google and OpenAI became finalists, but it was GPT-5 that achieved a perfect score of 12, which is the best score.
GPT-5
and better than what the
11
humans
of 12, and the new unreleased reasoning model got the 12th question.
It was a special model for this, but achieved the perfect score.
Achieved the perfect score.
Than any human.
Where non-humans achieved this before. I think one team, and that person now works in OpenAI, achieved the perfect score before, like a decade ago. And both of them, everybody says it's impossible. We're definitely going to chat about this.
Unbelievably hard. Yeah, it's not just another benchmark. That's unbelievably hard.
We're basically there, and AI achieved superhuman ability to code. And last year, it wasn't able to even solve like 2 questions. It's insane. It's insane.
Let's cover this.
And it's GPT-5. We're definitely going to cover this.
And there was another big announcement about teen safety, freedom, and privacy that will affect everybody who's using OpenAI's ChatGPT app. And because if you've seen it, there have been issues where their principles come in conflict because they want privacy and protection, user freedom, but at the same time, teen safety. And we should definitely talk about this and what it means and the measures they are using. I think that is important for everybody.
They want privacy, but at the same time, they want to get IDs, for example, from teenagers to know that they're teenagers, right? So there's like definitely complications there.
Detecting if you are a minor by how you use the AI, that could also be very interesting outcomes.
Yeah.
I also thought that they are offering user configurable thinking time for the web chat GPT-5 thinking, because I have not been using it all that much because it takes so long. So for many questions, you just want a quick answer. This is also very welcome. Oh, you have it on the list. Okay.
A shout out to the folks who are just going to listen to this on the podcast. I do a lot of work to prepare all this. Wolfram just goes off top of his head and like bang, 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 all the items that I have on there.
Everything from OpenAI, since you went to Meta.
I think one last thing on the big companies and APIs, Meta Connect. So Meta's yearly developer conference and product announcement conference happened last night for some reason at like 5 p.m. It's weird because like last year before this, when I got these awesome glasses that I lost, I had this. I was actually invited last year. This year, my benefactor at Meta probably shuffled a change of scenery within Meta. And the presentation was at like 5 p.m., probably due to Zuck's ability or whatever. And they talked about a bunch of AI. They talked about the way that AI is going to join our world in the physical form. They talk about new glasses that they announced. We definitely should cover all of this because it's really cool. If you guys are into technology and latest and greatest, like the new form factor is basically here. And it's from Meta, not from Apple and not from Google, not from everybody else. It's from Meta, which is quite incredible to see them finally deliver this. And Yam, the glasses that you usually wear to the stream, they now have those with the camera. So that's, next time you can join while having an AI assistant on your face. And last but not least, ARC-AGI. This is a very difficult kind of like, I think it's the third generation now, test for whether or not AI can do out of distribution tasks with multimodality. ARC-AGI has been beat again. I guess like it's always getting tested. And we talked about highest ARC-AGI scores. Quick 03 was released, if you guys remember, and they topped the charts and like then test time compute, blah, 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 blah. So there's a new state-of-the-art score on ARC-AGI from Jeremy Berman and Eric Pang. And Jeremy's going to come to the show. Very much looking forward to Jeremy joining us and chatting about ARC-AGI state-of-the-art and why he chose Grok 4, etc. I think that this is it. In the big companies, Anthropic not only admitted already that they had bugs, they posted a very deep and thorough analysis of which bugs affected which things. They reiterated that they never on purpose degrade the quality. And it feels like too little too late a little bit because like people are switching, and after like 3 weeks of nobody's listening to us on Anthropic, they did listen, but it feels like a little bit too late. But they did fix this, and I did see people say the cloud code is back. And they also mentioned that they never do any time of day updates, whatever, which is, we know that some people think they do. Some people think that like it works better at night or whatever when there's no stress. But they reiterated that they don't do this. So yeah, Anthropic is back as well on the game. In this week's buzz, super quick, TLDR is long this week. This week has been long. This week's buzz, I just want to highlight that if you're doing any reinforcement learning and using weights and biases, you can now send the rollouts, the tests of the reinforcement learning into Weave, and we've now built Weave into weights and biases models. It's super cool. I'm going to run through this. I'm going to show how somebody trained an agent to do some email, and then you can like immediately very easily see both the training runs and the rollouts. It's really something. It will change the game for you if you're doing any RL with weights and biases. I'm super excited about this. It just came out yesterday. Vision and video. Humo was released from ByteDance as well. ByteDance also is firing on all cylinders. They just released like an image that the Seedream before, and they have a different video model than this, right? They have the ByteDance Mina? No. Yeah, Dreamina is ByteDance. OmniHuman is also by... I'm kind of lost in how many AI-generated video techniques they have, but they released a new one. This feels like a research only because it's only good for like 4 seconds. But Humo is human-centric multimodal video gen by ByteDance. What does human-centric mean? Unlike video generation like Veo, where it can also generate humans, this one is focusing on the humans and not like scenery. So, for example, you can give it sound and it will generate the video with that sound. You can give it a person, it will generate this person from a different perspective. So we're definitely gonna check that out because it's cool. And I wrote a thread about this and I was very, very happy to check it out. Voice and audio, there's Reka Speech, and there's also another one. There's a TTS Red Panda TTS, something like this. Wolfram, you sent it to me. Feel free to send me in private chat. Let's dive into open source because we don't have that much time. Wolfram, thank you for the notes. Let's dive into the show. Open source AI, let's get it started. Alrighty, folks, we're at open source. Wolfram, where would you like to start in open source? I think you choose for this time.
Oh, okay. So let's start with Mistral, I would say.
Yes.
But I already said so much about it in the TLDR that...
That's all right. Mistral releases 2 new models. They literally just announced it like today, right? Even though yesterday they actually released it. Let's go take a look. I want to bring it up. While you talk about this, I want to bring up the actual kind of announcement.
Okay, so Magistral is a model for Mistral, which is a reasoning model they have, and they released the 2 versions of small 1.2 and medium 1.2, or as the model is named on Hugging Face, 2509. And it's Apache licensed. Only the small one is available right now on Hugging Face, so the other one is only API for now. But I think as a business model, that's absolutely acceptable, and they have released some medium models also later, so I'm fine with that. And yeah, it is multimodal. So now it has a vision encoder and can handle both text and images. It has an improved performance on math and coding, 50% they measured in the AMI and live code benchmarks. And better tool use is always welcome because the reasoning models are excellent for agents, of course. And better tone and persona, yeah, that is probably up for subjective tastes. Yeah. But any improvement, yeah, is welcome, I think, and it can be handled with a system prompt anyways.
And we can take a look at some evals here. AIME 24 and AIME 25 was competition math. They are comparing it only to themselves. Actually, no, look, Quen is here. Hey, good job, Mr.
And DeepSeek, wow.
we always we always laughed that like Quen is not in the Mistral comparisons.
Everyone forgets.
I think forgets Quen is a very charitable interpretation. If they conveniently forget because their scores are lower, then it's something else. But this time Mistral does add Quen 235B thinking from July and also DeepSeek from May. And it looks like Magistral Medium is not quite up there, but fairly close. Fairly close. But definitely doesn't beat both of them.
Tiny model, Magistral.
So we don't know the medium size, I believe. Do we know medium size, Wolfram? I don't believe that they talked about it because it's not available in
I think I haven't looked at it. It's probably around 20B or something. So I guess a medium should be 60, 70B around that.
It's 24B.
Let's quickly check what other medium model size they have.
Look, we know that the old one is smaller than all the super large models. And I'm not sure which Quen exactly did they compare themselves to, but I think it's fair to say that medium is extremely smaller than both of them.
They compare Magistral Medium, the new one, to DeepSeek and Quen. It's quite significantly smaller than both of them. It comes close on multiple things, not beating them. Can I just say I'm very happy with this chart from Mistral because Mistral compares itself to the very big open source releases. They did do this, but like this medium is not open source, but they compare this to the big Quen 3 and DeepSeek or Apache 2. But still, they are not the best in all charts here. Necessarily, they're not even the best at any charts besides maybe Math 24, right? Everything else is lower than DeepSeek for sure and Quen. But they still posted the chart. And I commend them for this. They don't have SOTA, but they still released it and they're still posting the chart. That's great. The small one, Magistral Small, this is a 24 billion parameter. They compare this to Quen 3 and then 32B and Quen 3, the MOE, the 30B A3B, and then the previous Magistral Small from 3 months ago. And this is a significant upgrade. So they boast like a very significant AIME jump, almost 15 points, significant AIME 25, almost 12 points, and this almost beats Quen at live code bench and other things. So very impressive because this is a reasoning model and it now has vision. So kudos to Mistral. All right, folks, I think moving on makes sense here because tons of other stuff. Wolfram, I want to talk about the deep research stuff. I definitely want to talk about this because the kind of the implications are huge. I actually saw Imad Mustak, the founder of Stability and the previous CEO, talk about this being like the hugest thing on his week. And I asked him why. He told me like because deep research at the level of OpenAI I think Imad will forgive me, and our chat is not privileged, but he's like, the benchmarks on the model they can run on the mobile are pretty crazy, especially if they can upgrade to something like A3B, ADB. And also, Imad said, read my book. Imad has a new book, The Last Economy. But besides this, I think that having deep research in 3 billion parameter active with this level of quality is insane. So let me show this actually on the screen.
Easily run that on a MacBook.
Yeah. So Tongi Deep Research is from Alibaba, the Ali Tongi Lab, the lab in Alibaba. They said fully open source web agent to achieve performance on par with OpenAI Deep Research with only 30 billion parameter, only activated 3 billion parameters. Basically, this can run on a Mac, this can run on a phone. Tongi Deep Research Agent demonstrates state-of-the-art results, scoring 32.9 in humanity's last exam. Every time somebody's going to bring up HLE, I will make sense. I will just laugh at the fact that this is going to get saturated so fast. Calling it last something was so stupid, but okay. 45% on browse comp and then 75% on Xbench deep search. So let's take a look at this. This is a 3 billion active parameter model that beats DeepSeek on humanity's last exam, beats Kimi Researcher, beats Gemini Deep Research with a significant advantage, like 32% on humanity's last exam. Gemini Deep Research gets 26. OpenAI Deep Research gets 26. It's insane. What are we looking at? Browse comp is, I think, the competition of just browsing. They get very close to OpenAI Deep Research at 43. They almost beat everything else. WebWalker, Browse comp, ZH, I think this is the Chinese version. Simple QA is 98. What? This is insane. 98.6 in Simple QA, which is significantly higher than, Gemini 2.5 gets 55. I haven't looked at this deeply, but I don't know what we're looking at. This is some kind of beast. How did they do this? They show an example of the strategy. This is basically novel automated multi-stage data strategy designed to create vast and high-quality agentic training data without relying on costly human annotation. So basically synthetic data.
From what I saw is that they train synthetically with RL. If I remember, if I'm not mistaken, with another release from Quen, because they release things all the time. And basically they have, I mean, go read the thread. That's what I want to say. I just want to highlight that the way they train this model and generate the data is very unique and very insightful. And there is a lot to learn from it. There is a reason this small model is so good. And it's pretty remarkable that you could do any of this with a model this size. Like we said before, I mean, what's the limit? I mean, I'm not sure where the limit on those things anymore.
Tiny, man. It's tiny. Only 3 billion active parameters, 30 billion in total. They show, I would just want to shout out that the Quen bases, Quen did so much for the community for releasing those models. 2.5 is a workhorse. 3 is a workhorse. They're like, everybody's fine-tuning these models. Everybody used to say, if you guys remember in the beginning, where we hosted every week somebody who fine-tuned on the open source arena on Hugging Face, we were like, hey, fine-tuning is like the big thing. And then fine-tuning kind of took a dive. RL brought fine-tuning back with a force. And now everybody's using these Quen models. Everybody's fine-tuning them for purposes. This is the result of the new fine-tuning, supervised SFT. They also now, everybody does RL, or reinforcement learning, in some sort of ways. Here's an outline of how they did this. They started with a base from Quen series. I don't think they mentioned which base. And they had multiple stages of high-quality synthetic data with data for multi-step execution of these agents that need to do something. And they had a whole system here with automating synthetic data creation and then building a reward service for this. Basically, when the agent does what it needs to do, then they need the reward service and then send it back to the training. And then they need to roll out. They basically, roll out means they train the agent a little bit. They then want to test it out whether or not this new trained version does better or worse and give it rewards. And then they basically prompt the model that they've trained, see how it performs. Then they give it scores, and then they give it back to the service. So they have a very cool setup here with an automatic rollout service, which basically makes them go faster. And then they have a simulated environment, a real environment with tools like search, file parsing, visiting a website, Google Scholar for some reason. So yeah, deep research in a small model, incredible.
People are running RL in real life now.
Yes.
I mean, that's RL on the real internet. Before that, a week before, we saw Cursor doing a crazy thing on policy and real life user interactions. That's pretty crazy that we got to the point where RL is so accessible that you start to run RL in real life. Basically, if you take such a small model and just let it randomly try stuff on the real internet, it learns if you give it the right word. I mean, that's crazy when you think about it.
Absolutely crazy.
It's RL, but it's crazy that it's working that well in real life, that is noisy with such a small model. I mean, I think it's remarkable.
100%. And the fact that RL started picking up, and then all these companies are now building RL environments and like getting to different places. Notwithstanding, Wasted Bison and Core, we also like talked about, the folks from OpenPipe joined us, and we're gonna do like a bunch of RL stuff as well. It looks like at least that's some of it's where it's heading. Although Karpathy is skeptical about this being the number one thing that that will get us to AGI, but we can talk about this. All right, moving forward.
It'll be an important part, I'm sure. Important part.
So this is Tongi DeepResearch, 3 billion parameter active, 30 billion in total, and it beats DeepResearch on OpenAI, which is insane. And
by the way, I checked, it's Qwen 3 based, so it's very recent, and I'm very interested to check out if they did that test and in their own setup, of course. So I would be interested if you use the same model, give it an MCP web search tool and see how far it goes that way. So yeah, we'll definitely look into this more.
Okay, so we're moving to the last thing on our kind of open source, at least the LLM stuff, Perceptron AI. And we're going to do like some vision stuff as well. There's like a bunch of other open source. Perceptron AI released Isaac 0.1, and that is like absolutely dope. Perceptron is this new lab. I haven't heard about them before, and they have released a new language model, a small language model, 2 billion parameters in total, called Isaac. But they call this a perceptive language model, which means that they call this the Pareto efficient frontier of perception. They put themselves in this graph. On the left, you have performance in percentage of some sort. And then on the bottom, you have cost per million tokens and in logarithmic scale. So at the absolutely right bottom corner, they have Cloud Opus, which cannot point. They have in parentheses, Cloud Opus cannot point. What does point mean? We'll explain to you in a second. And then GPT-4o cannot point as well. And then they have Gemini Flash and Flash Lite. And like basically the x-axis is cost per million tokens. And then they put them in like 60-ish%. They put themselves as like 72, 73% with a very, very low relative cost because like it's a tiny model. What can it do? This model can do visual QA, grounded spatial intelligence, precise pointing and localization of understanding. So you can say, what is the highest book on the shelf, for example. You can give it an image of books and say, point to the highest blue book in the stack, and the stack has multiple blue books, and will like basically draw a rectangle around this and point. You can build a smart system of monitoring. They have an example here of a construction site, and you have specific rules that everybody must wear a hat and boots, and you can like check whether or not people wearing hat and boots by simply prompting it. All individuals entering work sites should be wearing helmet, gloves, closed-toe shoes. If all three are not worn, please say alert, and the model comes back with alert. The image shows a person wearing a white hard hat and closed-toe shoes, but no gloves are visible. So this model is like very versatile, but the whole thing is this is a prompt. You don't have to build in, or you don't have to like fine tune or train it like YOLO or other like visual performance ones. So this is a language model that can point. But instead of talking too much about this, let us just like take a look. They have this like super cool demo. You can choose the response style, polygon, box, point, or text. Let's do text, for example. And they have an image here, and it says, determine whether it's safe to cross the street, look for signage and moving traffic. The image is basically a woman standing somewhere in the cross, and you run, and it's fairly fast as well. We already got an answer. It says, no, it's not safe to cross the street. The traffic signal visible in the image shows the red pedestrian sign. We can take a look and see the red pedestrian sign here. Okay, this red signal indicates the pedestrians should not wait. But also, instead of just asking determine, you can say, instead of response text, we can say point and say, find all the traffic signs in this photo and segment them. So we can do something like this and run, and the model will find us traffic signs. And you can see that it says this is a crosswalk sign, This is a left turn sign that it found somewhere over there. This is a traffic light and then another traffic light.
How large is that thing?
2
again?
billion parameters.
Let's try something hard.
All right.
It's too good, man.
I have gotten to the
Okay.
point where this model fails. I've uploaded a huge group photo from Burning Man, like our whole camp. There's a lot of people there.
Look,
And I asked
that's dense object detection. I'm not sure. That's a little bit unfair.
let's try hard, right? So like, let's try hard.
But the model is probably trained to just detect a couple of instances. If you're gonna do dense object detection, I'm not sure it's fair. But I think that
Just for folks on the stream, this is a picture of maybe, I think 70 people, just rough counting, all dressed in weird things, all very like dense together. And I want to say, find and segment all the hats, boots, and costumes, and then let's run and let's see if this model. This is a 2 billion parameter model, and it's running, and you can see it's live. It's selecting hats.
Nice.
I don't know
Alright.
how accurate this is, but like at some point it's gonna start doing boots. I think based on this, we found a failure mode for the model for sure, because like I had this before, but it does some stuff well.
That's impressive already.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure that's what the model is intended for.
No, I'm pretty sure it's not.
But
It's very impressive.
it's really good.
Yes,
It's really, really good.
I want to say
Looks
go ahead,
very
Alpha.
useful. And I did a test as well where I uploaded an image where several people were, and I was asking in German for the ones wearing glasses, and it highlighted them even when it was a bad lighting situation. So it impressed me a lot as well.
Okay,
Very
I have
good
another
model.
picture here, and this is something I say for my kid. This is the Harry Potter alphabet. It has like ABCs, and all of the letters have kind of like some spell from Harry Potter. So let's find the spell that turns off the light. Let's see if we can do it. Turns off the light. So it needs to read this and figure out. Oh my god! Oh my god! I uploaded, so again, for the viral moment, I uploaded a screenshot of somebody's like poster with A, B, C, D, E, F, G, like all the alphabet, and every word has a little description on it with the spell that starts with that letter. And then I asked it, find the spell that turns off the light. And then it found and said, the spell that turns off the light is Nox. And then the Nox is like this active thing that I can point to it will zoom. The spell, which part of the ABCs of Harry Potter, is used to put out one light. It's important spell in Wizardly World, blah, blah, blah. This is way more cooler to me than like the previous one. It just like it read it and found it, and like I didn't say Nox or anything. Find all the spell letters and segment them. So you can also do something like this, and then it will. I think it's skip 2. Black curtain, Crucio, Descendo, Expecto. Like all of these became like smart pills in the output for folks who are just listening that I can click and it can zoom in. So it found not only does it know about them, which is all multimodals probably know about this, right? If we upload the same picture, we can ask it. All multimodal models know about this. This knows where they are and pointed me to them as well and built a box around them. So great for segmentation, for example. And this is 2 billion parameters.
Imagine you have a picture of us, for example, and then you
Yes.
have a picture of yourself, and you ask, who is Alex? Or not the name because it's displayed, but just who looks like this.
We're going to take a picture of the three of us. Folks, today's show is a bunch of examples. Hopefully we'll have time for all of this. I uploaded all three of us, and then I'm going to open.
Watch the video, guys.
Do we know how much was this trained? Do we know how that thing was made? I mean, it's pretty incredible. And I don't know, we can use it. People just release crazy things
Yes.
like casually every day, just give you crazy free stuff you can use for. I mean, it's the 3 billion parameters. You can run this on your phone. I mean, that's crazy.
Do you guys remember Chameleon, the Meta Chameleon model that has been so long ago, where they had the model that could create images and read images? That is the team behind that.
Wolfram, your
perception.
test worked perfectly. So folks who are listening, I took a screenshot, all three of us, without the names. And then I took a screenshot just with me, separate image, and it said like Alex Volkov on the name. And then I asked it, find his name. So in the picture of all three of us without the name, it segmented me and said, this is Alex Volkov.
I would now give it a picture of you, not from the stream. that you wear the same clothes and so on. I mean, that's going to be impressive if it's going to work.
Yeah, that makes sense. We can test this, or we can move on because we have tons of other stuff. But folks, Perceptron is quite incredible, and this is just the start of the examples that we're gonna have here. If we're in examples, I really want to like show you Reve. So let's move on. We're in open source. I think we're moving from Perceptron. This is open source, by the way. You have this model on Hugging Face, but obviously the UI is what you're here for, and this model is CC by NC, the license. This is the first in their family of models built to be intelligent layer of physical world. Before we move on to the next segment, I want to move on to the next segment where we are going to chat about Hunyuan SRPO super quick. SRPO is a new method of fine-tuning image diffusion model. Nistin mentioned this before he disappeared, that this is a model that the folks in Hunyuan and Tencent and I think Chinese University of Hong Kong, Shenzhen, they released a model trained with this method. This is directly aligning the full diffusion trajectory of fine-grained human preference. This is a new method they call, kind of like DeepSeek gave us GRPO, which is a RL policy method that they open sourced. This is called SRPO, Semantic Relative Preference Optimization. They optimize image diffusion models for different things, specifically training them for specific things, for example, like realism, without the AI look. Do you guys remember we chatted about the partnership between Crea folks? First of all, there is the model called Crea 1, and then there is the fine-tuned Flux Crea. This whole thing was basically Crea folks training the open source Flux models to not have the AI look. And the AI look is very like, the face is airbrushed. You can tell, even though they're incredible. These folks are achieving some similar results with non-AI looks. This picture does not look AI generated. I think the highlight is, I'm burying the lead here. The highlight is you could tune this with just 10 minutes. According to the team, SRPO makes diffusion models photorealistic in just 10 minutes, delivering 75x efficiency gain over previous methods like 32 GPU setups fine-tunes. Methods suppose promptable rewards, so you can tell it what you want, improves realism and aesthetics, and is open sourced with example code. And then you need less than 1,500 images for 10 minutes to directly align diffusion models. I think that's crazy. I think that's crazy because the improvement in how quick we can fine-tune some of these models are just like incredible. I do want to show some examples here as well.
And it's by prompt. That's
promptable
insane.
And fewer than 1,500 images. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking into the way they did it, but it's not something you look into quickly, apparently. But that's crazy. I mean, they did a lot to this point. I mean, that's absolutely crazy.
So I'm showing a comparison here between FluxDev, the fine-tune for realism, and SRPO. And in this example, it's very clear to see which one is the more realistic. It's the SRPO is way more realistic. It just looks like a person that you would maybe meet, while FluxDev is absolutely like, the skin is AI skin. You can see this. Wolfram, thoughts on this so far?
Yeah, it's interesting, and it's also a subjective thing, of course, because if you want airbrushed images, for instance, it depends on the person what you prefer in these. But it's great to have an option that is super realistic. That is something that we have been missing.
Yeah.
Bro, you can tell it to do whatever you want. If you want it realistic, just tell the model, go be more realistic, and the reward function will guide you to a more realistic model if you want. Cartoonish, professional shot, iPhone shot, amateur shot. That thing is crazy. You can just tell it what you want. Look at the results, man. What's the size of this? Can I run it at home? Can I not? I'm not sure. That thing is crazy. The whole image and video field is just blowing up. Every week we see a crazy thing. We didn't have this before.
No, this is absolutely crazy.
I think it was like 41 gigs in B-Float 16.
Yeah, the model is, but the process, I think you can run, I think they say you can run this on 32 GPUs. I don't know if you have 32 GPUs at home, but that's what I have in my notes. The last thing
you can run these on 32 GPUs. Okay, I know you can run
this
on 100 if you really...
The model is probably small. The thing that I want to highlight super quick before we move on here is somebody took this and then extracted this into a LoRa, and you can apply this LoRa to FluxDev directly. So you don't have to train like a full model, which I just love open source, dude. I just love the open source community. Alison Nerd X is putting up a FluxDev SRPO LoRa's, so you can just apply this, and LoRa's are tiny, right? Alrighty, folks. So this was in image diffusion, and I think we're gonna stick around before we get to big companies. I really have to show you Reve, because like Reve is absolutely insane. So Reve is this new lab probably not new, but like the release is new, that have shown a incredible reimagining reality tool. And I think this one you have to see. So if you're listening to this, I'll try to describe as best I can what's happening on my screen. But Reve basically is a image editing model and creation model, everything that you can like add or remove stuff. And you can create things very creatively. We talked about Nano Banana being an editing model, not just an image generation, but an like full editing model. You can tell it, I want to remove this, I want to add this. But Biden's release Seedring, right, Wolfram? Correct me if I'm wrong. And then we had Hunyon as well, and now we have Reve, and it's their own approach, their own trained model. But I think the most interesting thing here is not the model. I think the UX here is what's most interesting. I think they just came out and they may have
So do they have their own image model?
Look,
or are they
guys,
using something like Banana?
They have their own image model. And I think what you're looking at is basically they have some sort of image understanding, kind of like what we saw with the Isaac image before. And the picture you uploaded is in the middle, or the picture you generated with Reve is in the middle. On the right, you have kind of like, it's not really layers, but it's kind of like layer menu in Photoshop. It's objects. So they detect in the image which objects you have there. So if you have your face, they say this is a person, and inside the person, you're going to break it down. There's like the face, the hands, everything is separate. All of these objects have bounding boxes on the actual image, and you can move them around. You can say, okay, this person's face in the next generation that I want, because it's an iterative process, right? Look, you build up. You can take the face, move it to the top left. Then you can create a new object that doesn't exist, create a bounding box for it, and say, here, I want some text. And you just basically prompt each of the objects. Why is this so cool? Instead of just like prompting and then re-adding the same image to the prompt and asking for changes, here you visually just move things around and say, here I want some text, here I want another big text, here I want to move this person, here I want to add hands. And you literally just control the composition. And I've never seen like a UI like this before. And I know it's possible with Veo, because remember, some folks discovered that if you have the first frame in Veo and you say, hey, you know, this should change to that, this should change to this, literally with text on the first image, Veo will kind of animate this as much as you want. They basically took that concept into image generation stuff, creating something with this fidelity, where you can move things away, you can literally say where you want what you want. I think it's going to like seep through, and like everybody's going to build this UI, and Crea and everybody else. It's really, really
amazing.
Cool.
Because always we have heard about the Photoshop killer and stuff like that. But this is an actual Photoshop-like AI where you have much more control in the UI. So that was a big step forward, I think.
Yeah, it's really, really super cool. And they basically break down and describe every object in the scene for you. And I think the cool thing is that you can now move. Basically, you can see here that like I'm taking the text that the image generated and just literally moving it in the next generation to the top left. Because I'm like, I want it here and not in the middle. And then after you've done all these changes, you like submit, and then they will generate the image, and then you'll see that the text is going to move to the top left. Let's try to see. It generates, and the text is top left. And they changed my face as well, and they added a subtitle. But basically, the controllability of this is just like scary and super, super cool. So definitely try out Reve. I think it's free for now, but it's broken right now, but it's generally super cool. Should we move on, folks? We're going to have an interview soon with Jeremy, but for now, I think that before we get to word about this week's buzz super quick, unless you guys have something super small to talk about before, I think this week's buzz makes...
I just think it's funny that you have a company investing tens of millions of dollars into training a model, and then someone on Hugging Face like, yeah, I extracted LoRa. And then you can just move the LoRa and play with it and merge the weights and you know, people online. But that's part of the game. That's open source. I mean, the dynamic is just crazy.
Yep. All right. So I think it's time for this week's buzz. Welcome to this week's buzz, a corner on ThursdAI where I talk about every updates and cool things that happen in weights and biases from CoreWeave. My name is Alex Volkov. I'm an AI evangelist, and this is my job to tell you about these things. But also, it's not my job to be super excited about the cool things, and definitely we have some cool things this week. So, as you guys know, we've talked about RL a lot lately. RL, reinforcement learning, is the new craze in fine-tuning, which almost a year ago when folks created the test time compute paradigm with reinforcement learning. There's been a bunch of incredible innovations in this world, and then DeepSeek came out with GRPO, and that exploded. And then many people are taking a regular fine-tuned model and then RL fine-tuning this for specific purposes. And this seems to be a big thing. RL environments is a big thing. We just talked about multiple RL improvement, and then Grok 4, I believe, half of the compute was spent on RL as well, which is like significantly more than anything else. And so everybody does it with weights and biases because the weights and biases model, and because weights and biases is the premier and the top experimentation tracking software for machine learning engineers, and you need to run a bunch of experiments on models, a bunch of runs, and weights and biases models has been traditionally and still is the best place to do so. However, RL is specific because as part of RL, there's something called rollouts. So you have to, let's say you train your agent to do specific email answers, or you train your, I don't know, agent to do some deep research stuff like we saw just now with the Tencent stuff. As part of RL, you need to give your model rewards for good behavior. And as part of that, you have to like basically run inference on this model in the middle multiple times to have it do the thing that you want to check for, right? And that looks like regular inference. And because it looks like regular inference, people need to read this sometimes and see why in the middle of your RL release, something dropped down or reward function dropped down, etc. RL, basically it means that your agent or the model you're training, you need to run inference in the middle multiple times to see which one is the correct one and to say this one's the correct one, give that a reward. This is where Weave comes in. Usually when I talk about Weave from Weights and Biases, this is the tracing and evaluation platform. We have built a platform for this purpose. And now, the reveal. Folks, we have unified both the platforms now. We now have Weave built into Weights and Biases models. This is huge because Weights and Biases so far is this incredible place where you can see charts and they're super configurable. You can see your train reward, loss function. You can see all of the things that you want to see in a machine learning kind of process. But also now, very easily, you can report your RL rollouts into Weave, and then you have like a whole Weave panel here within Weights and Biases. So why is this very useful? Is because you can then super quickly discover which of the steps that you were here. Let's say we're going to take this train loss. There's a loss spike and there's a loss dump here. So we're going to filter this, and then we're going to go into the rollouts of that specific kind of agent thing, and we're going to click. And with this click, you will see that for this step, this is, by the way, verifiers library from Will Brown from Prime Intellect. And then we have a first-party integration with multiple RL libraries at this point. You can see all of the things that happen. So we used OpenAI Chat Complete to create like some multi-step reasoning thing. Please reason step by step, put your final answer in the thing. And we give it like a question. Every hour past noon, shadows from a building stretch extra 5 feet. You can see the conversation that your agent during the RL training has done, and you can see like all of them. You can like skip based on all of the conversations, just like one by one. You can see 36 conversations happening here, and you can see this for each step. So basically this combines the extreme power of Weave, which we've built specifically for this purpose for you guys, with the training, because you can like select at which step of the training which rollout things you'd like. And I think for many folks who are using RL, this is going to be super, super useful, because basically we built Weave for this, but for AI engineers who work with just, OpenAI APIs and they build agents, etc. This is now coming to the folks who are training agents, and I think more and more folks are using RL to train their own agents. So if you're doing any RL at all and you're using weights and biases for this, the way to get it is very simple. You just import Weave in Python and just wrap with decorators the functions that cause this. That's it. And then you have this incredible way to look into your data, which is very important. This is the update for weights and biases thing. If you very easy to start. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, and we are moving forward because we are lack of time. All right, we're moving forward. I think in something like 20 minutes, we're going to have Jeremy Berman here to chat with. And I think we have a bunch of stuff to talk about before and after. And let's dive into big companies and APIs. I want to chat about Gpt-5-Codex first of all. So let's do that. Who wants to start us? Codex did a full circle. It started as a model and now is a model again.
Full circle started as, yeah, you're absolutely right. Started as a model, but 3 years ago. Anyway, there are many things called Codex today. Today we're talking about Codex, the GPT-5 fine-tuning version. OpenAI had fine-tuned their flagship model GPT-5 to be better at code. And you might ask yourself, okay, GPT-5 is pretty much the best already for coding, pretty much, or at least among the best. Why would you need a specialized version for agentic coding? Basically, the thing is that what OpenAI is aiming for, you can pretty much sense it on the web app of Codex, is that you would be able to just launch missions, launch Codex, launch a model, let it go on, do its thing, and you review the PRs later. And if you like them, you merge them. And that's pretty cool when you have the ChatGPT app infrastructure review, because then you can launch tasks from your phone. Codex just works from ChatGPT app on your phone. So basically what we got this week is an updated version for the model that is running this service that I just described. It was based before that on a specially trained version of O3, and now it's been updated to a specially trained version of GPT-5. And I must tell you, it's really, really good. I mean, you do feel the difference. It can go on for long, solve really long tasks, and just come back to you after an hour or something when the task is extremely long and complex, and it doesn't lose track, in my opinion. And that's kind of already vibes and personal opinion. I haven't seen other models not losing track.
Thank you so much for covering the beginning. I want to highlight this paragraph as relates to what you're saying. Literally from the blog on OpenAI. During testing, we've seen GPT-5 Codex work independently for more than 7 hours at a time on large complex tasks, iterating on its implementation, fixing test failures, and ultimately delivering a successful implementation. More than 7 hours. This combined with the other ICPC news, it just blows my mind how fast we're moving towards like superhuman coding intelligence for agents that are running asynchronously. They say now that like 90% of OpenAI uses stuff, and Codex is definitely some model that they use. Based on OpenAI employee traffic, we see that the bottom 10% of users turns sorted by model generated tokens. GPT-5 Codex uses 93% fewer tokens than GPT-5. 93% fewer tokens. So the thing is, not only does it upgrade,
it's important. That's the first time we see a frontier lab bragging that they are saving you tokens.
Yeah.
Like that's the first time that we see, and any of the frontier labs just saying you can do the same with less tokens. We have seen other forms of efficiency trying to help the user save, but this is the first time we see direct comparison. Less tokens, you pay
specifically
for.
Because GPT-5 is very good. It's been clear. But it thinks for a long time, especially in like large tasks. Codex does better than GPT-5, the regular one, on Sweetbench verified. Gets 74% versus 72%. Not a big jump, but it's still a jump. But on code refactoring tasks and PR, it's like a significant jump on accuracy, 51% versus 33%. But it does so with significantly less tokens, and also it thinks more on the higher, very high difficult tasks. So they basically created this. I think this is the chart. I want to zoom out so we can see the whole chart. This is the chart, like the most important chart here. On 90th percentile of, this is OpenAI employee traffic, 90th percentile of model generated tokens per response, GPT-5 Codex gets significantly longer on the difficult tasks and significantly smaller on the more like easier tasks compared to GPT-5 medium. This chart is like incredible because they basically made it think for longer on the difficult tasks and just respond quicker on the smaller task without like in saving you tokens. I think this is like absolutely incredible. And yeah, this is a great model. It's now built into the Codex playground on the web that runs independently. It's built into the Codex CLI that they've improved and now looks super, super cool. And you can log in with your OpenAI account. So you just like go and use like Codex-M, I believe. I have this here.
And it's really, really simple.
Yeah, after you have this with NPM, if you really like force it into GPT-5 Codex, you just like do Codex-model-M GPT-5 Codex and you just go like this. So basically...
You can just do it through the menu, through settings, and just select whatever model that you want.
And it's really dope. So folks, definitely give it a try.
That thing can control your computer from there. It's yeah, on the web it does what it does on the web, but from the terminal it can control your computer. That thing can run your computer for like 7 hours without you on the keyboard. I mean that's crazy. Seriously.
So just to clarify what Codex is generally. So now there's a model called Gpt-5-Codex. There's a Codex CLI, so command line interface that we just showed. There's the Codex in extension for IDEs, so VS Code, etc. There's like a side panel. If you're using Cursor, for example, and you want Codex in there, you can just like have Cursor in here with this like OpenAI. There's like a Chrome extension. Basically, you can have the GPT-5 Codex here as well. And then there's also the Codex Playground on the web. So if you go to like, codex.openai, there's the Codex Playground that's like independently can do PRs for you, etc. for code review. And now Codex includes a code review component. So you can tag it on GitHub and it will go and like look at your PR and it's like really good. OpenAI says that every PR now in OpenAI is getting reviewed by Codex. At OpenAI, Codex now reviews the vast majority of our PRs, catching hundreds of issues every day before we even look at them. And you can just like tag Codex. It was super cool. Nistan is back just in time to say things about Codex super quick before we move on. GPT-5-Codex.
Oh, no.
No? Okay.
I can say something because
ahead,
the timing is amazing for OpenAI. They are so lucky because now the controversy about Opus and Sonnet being like Anthropic, the issues they had, that was a perfect time for OpenAI to now have a coding model, have the CLI improved, and they converted a lot of users to their ecosystem now.
Yep.
Yeah, it should be good now. I still think Opus are better. They're just not, it's just the tooling around them is pretty difficult to get right. At the end of the day, because I do use GPT-5 through AMP too, and I have found it to be the best at planning and the smartest at finding the bugs and analyzing them. But when I need something to look good on screen, there's still no match for it, in my opinion. Like it just, or at least the way I'm used to writing stuff or the way I want it, I still find no match for Sonnet for an Opus yet.
Interesting. Yeah, that's great. And we can rely on Nistan to give us an honest opinion always and not, just cheer based on the timeline. So thank you, Nistan. Folks, we have to move on because we're going to have a chat with Jeremy very, very soon. But before this, I do want to chat about Meta Connect. Zuck and pretty much everybody from Meta took the stage yesterday for their annual Meta Connect. My glasses are talking to me. Hold on. I know the battery percentage now. Basically, Zuck took the stage yesterday and announced that not only that they didn't announce a new Llama or anything like this, but they said not only they're bringing new versions of the glasses, like a very similar, like Oakley's, the standard of Oakley's. You got the Ray-Bans?
I have the ARC glasses. That's fine, but I have the Ray-Bans, by the way.
Nice.
So you got the Oakleys. I have the Ray-Bans. They're great, by the way.
So Meta has been popularizing the glasses that Yama's wearing right now, the new ones that I'm wearing right now as well. They released a bunch of new ones, and they invested in Extra Luxottica and Ray-Bans and Oakleys, etc. However, a new category of thing was announced. I really want to show this because this is like super, super cool. I have a video to show you guys. Video file. Let me see if I can actually do this because I've been recording yesterday, and I want to show you this opening. Yeah, okay. This is how the show opened. I'm going to narrate. So we basically see Zuck sitting on the couch from a perspective reading a script.
All right.
And somebody saying, "We're ready for you." And we see like a video recording of him in portrait mode. And then he reaches into the camera, picks it up, and puts it on his face. Isn't that super cool? And then you can see a screen. So you can see what's up in there. Let me pause and see what else can we see there. You can see a screen. So basically, they started recording on the camera and put it on the desk, and now he's like, okay, let me put on this camera. You can see WhatsApp, you can see Instagram, you can see a camera, you can see a music tab, you can see calls and messenger, captions, and photos. So basically, they announced a new pair of glasses, and then he's going to play, and they did this live demo where he walks out of the trailer, which kind of looks nice. Zuck gets nice trailers. And then he kind of walks out of the trailer, walks into the hall while playing music. He sees the security guard. He walks forward. All of this was streaming live. And then he gets a bunch of text messages on WhatsApp during this from the audience. And then he kind of goes into the hall. He sees Boz Tank. Boz is the guy from Meta VR. And then he sees Diplo. And then he just like goes to the audience. How cool How fucking cool is that? This is one hell of a live demo for a product. And basically what he's showing is a new generation of Meta glasses with a built-in screen that you cannot see from the side. Like if Yam is wearing those glasses right now and he would have a screen, you would not see the screen. They have like less than 2% light leakage. So like a person that looks at you cannot see that you're looking at a screen, but they have a screen in the glasses. The form factor is not as sleek as the ones that Yam wears, but it's a little larger, obviously, because they have like to put a screen and more battery. This is a new category of device right now. This is like absolutely new category of device. Like Wolfram, we talked about this a little bit. There's a computer, there's a mobile phone, and now there's smart glasses with display.
I actually have some at home already. Developer kit from the frame classes. They had also a screen in it, but it was just a little one for a bit of text. So what Meta is doing is much, much more advanced, of course.
Yep. They called it Meta Ray-Ban displays. And I want to show you how they look because they look slick as hell. And I want to find a source that doesn't have. Now, the question would be like, why would you need those? And they have a high resolution, like very high resolution display. Zuck said like 5,000 nits of brightness, which is insane, but like it makes sense because those are sunglasses. You want to wear them when you go outside. So definitely makes sense. 12 megapixel camera, ultra wide camera, and then you can privately view texts and things. You basically don't have to take out your phone to do most of the stuff. And this is like a whole category of device. Not only that, it has AI built in. And I think that this is, for our show, maybe the most important thing. Just before this, though, I want to say this new input method, this is IO, this is output, right? You see the output. You need some input. You need to tell it. The glasses that I wear, the Yam wears as well, the input is voice. You say the keyword that I don't want to say right now because it's going to trigger, but like you say the keyword and you start talking to it, and then you have AI built in. You can do a bunch of stuff. You can send text message. You can hear the incoming thing. This is a new output visual because you can see the incoming message. You can see the photos. But also controlling that, you need some signals. So what they did is genius. And they did this for the past decade and a half they've been building this technology. They purchased a company called Myo Labs a long time ago. This company used electromagnetic signals on your wrist and send those kind of understanding signals to some device. So now they've turned it into an actual technology you can buy in a week. These glasses with the display are going to cost $799 and going to come out in a week. You'll be able to buy them.
That is super affordable if you think about what you are getting there. That is amazing. So, wow.
Yes, I'm struggling with a bunch of ads, but basically, I don't like Perplexity. They look very sleek. They kind of look like this. Zuck is wearing them. And he's wearing the neural band. Yeah, and you can see the little screen here on the right, and the neural band kind of controls them. I find this incredible. Absolutely incredible, because being able to silently control this without talking is one of the gripes that I have this definitely with this device. The AI portion there is very, very important, because what happens is Meta is building superintelligence. Meta is paying, we saw, between hundreds of millions to billions of dollars to folks to actually like deliver superintelligence. This is how they will deliver this to the physical world. You're going to wear these glasses, you're going to talk to AI, you're going to see some outputs because it's very much missing in the form that me and Yam have currently on our faces. This is how they're going to bring the AI to the physical world, and controlling this with the wristband. They actually showed an example of a few AI things. It wasn't mind-blowing, but they had live translation, so you could see subtitles under the person you're talking to. You're going to talk to a person, you can see subtitles below them. That's like super cool. And also they showed the demo of agentic approach, where you can ask the AI something, and then it will send a notification when it's done, and kind of it went on a deep research task, and then it came back. This is something that wasn't possible before unless you pull out your phone and get a notification. I think this is an absolutely mind-blowing thing. I was blown away by the fact that Meta can do a presentation as exciting and as innovating as I've ever seen before, while Apple's presentation were cool, but like pretty much a snooze fest. Comments, folks, on this? Will you be getting the glasses for $800
in Germany?
Look, I think we need to mention that the demo didn't go as smooth as planned. Look, the glasses, in terms of hardware, software, and so on, the glasses are amazing.
Should we play the demo didn't go? I have a recording of this.
Okay, we can. I just want to say that the AI, both in our glasses right now and also on Meta demo, wasn't the best, as to say the least. But the glasses themselves are incredible. So I just hope that Meta is going to catch up and going to change that.
Yeah. So let's take a look at the demo that didn't work. So we did see the demo that did work. Live demo of Zuck starting the show, walking out. So basically, here's the demo of, let me actually go and find this video. I have this video of basically him getting a phone call from Buzz, and this phone call did not work for them. Let me see if I can have this on.
Yeah, but even if the technology failed, I think the form factor is still the best one because the AI sees what you see, hears what you hear, can talk to you.
So here's the live demo that they tried. He tried to get a phone call from Buzz.
I think we should.
For folks who are viewing this, Zuck is standing near a table and he does something with the right wrist. What they have is this like incredible thing they barely talked about. He is writing like as though he holds a pen, but he doesn't hold anything. He only has like the band. He's writing on the table as like a person writing, and they have like writing detection. So he's basically answering. You can see like him like scribbling, and you can see on the right side on the screen that says he says something, and then in the writing it says, "Yeah, let's do it."
All right.
And that is like super cool on its own. Literally a new input thing. You basically write on any surface and like detect it.
There we go. Uh-oh. Well, let's see what happened there.
So basically he's getting a phone call, but he doesn't get the UI to answer the phone call. Then he got the UI, but the call was already over. And then Buzz was like calling him multiple times. The live demo was hard, but it worked like eventually. And that was super cool. Folks, $7.99 comes out in a week. Incredible new innovative frontier of AI. I will definitely be getting them. I will have to decide if I'm wearing those cool ones or them cool ones, but they have a fucking screen. And I'm very, very excited about this. And the screen is super bright. All right, folks, we're moving forward because we have a guest here. And silently, while we're talking about like the cool meta stuff, we had a new person join us. Jeremy Berman, welcome to the show. This is your first time here. Feel free to tell folks a little bit about you, what you do, where you are, and why you are here. We're going to go into next.
Thanks for having me. First time on the show.
Tell us a little bit about you, Jeremy. What's your background? What are you doing in the day-to-day life?
Sure. So I'm an AI researcher, currently researching reasoning at Reflection AI, where we're building foundation models. We're pre-training and post-training foundation models. I got into ARC-AGI, which I think is what we're going to talk about 9 months ago. I noticed that the field of language models was progressing very fast, but on a few benchmarks, notably ARC-AGI, progress seemed to have been slowing. I found it really fascinating. About 9 months ago, I decided to pursue that as a research direction, ended up getting the top place on ARC-AGI v1, and then have been kind of mulling over ideas for how to improve it. And just yesterday, the scores for ARC-AGI v2 were released. I updated my solution and am now first place again.
That's incredible. So first of all, congratulations on this achievement. It's definitely a monumental achievement. ARC-AGI has been around for a while. Francois Cholet famously posted up like 1 million something prize for beating. We've seen ARC-AGI being kind of populated. I think the last time that we actually talked about this on the show was in the context of test time compute and reasoning models. And O3 got the kind of the highest top score, but it cost like $1,000 per solution. So this is the famous ARC-AGI thing that we'll put up on the screen right now that has kind of like the x-axis is cost per task and the y-axis is the score. And O3 was absolutely to the bottom right, but also like it cost like more than $1,000 for, give me a second, let me try to figure this out. Okay, yeah, this is the ARC-AGI leaderboard, and this is the last time we talked about this. And now you're also on this leaderboard, and you're not a AI model, you're not a foundational lab maker, you're a person that like scored high. So could you start with telling us what ARC-AGI is, like what is the actual test and why it's difficult for models?
Yeah, sure. So ARC-AGI is basically IQ test for language models you can think of. So it's a series of grids, of input-output grids. And the idea is you're given a few examples of transformation rules to go from input to output. And then you basically just have to solve the test input to output. Basically, they're quite easy tasks, actually. So on ARC-AGI v1, the average human mechanical Turk gets about 77% on ARC-AGI. But then at the time, the best language models were getting around 5%. And so it's interesting because these tasks, again, children can solve them. These are children's puzzles. So as you can see here, you get 3 training examples, and then the 4th is what you have to actually solve for. Everyone here could solve these, but language models can't. I thought that was just very fascinating, right? We're living in a world where language models are PhD level on math tests. They're now top programmers in the world, but they can't solve these simple tasks that children can.
Yep. And famously, I think the whole point of this in the beginning was, hey, the second, this is the AGI test. If a model can solve this, it's going to be generalized like a human. And then super quickly, we saw that like models are starting to slowly creep up, and we can actually see the creep up is not that slow. We can see based on the models that, you know, the smaller models like DeepSeek, Qwen, Grok 3, all very, very low percentage. And then suddenly like the test time compute models, specifically the thinking models, started like rising super, super quick. So you can see GPT-5 mini is kind of low here in the low 25%, but like significantly higher than GPT 4.1, which is like less than 5% of completion. The more thinking there is, the better they perform. So like you can visualize the test time compute like scaling paradigm based on ARC-AGI. The longer it thinks, the more it is able to solve, and then you can actually see the very strong thinking models with a lot of RL. Like Grok 4 thinking is at the like 60-ish percentile or something. All three medium famously got a very high score, and I think the highest score that we've seen from a model was O3 preview back then. That cost a lot of money and put it in a very high score of around 75%. And here you are, Jay Berman, 2025, at the score of almost 80%. Okay, so you don't have a foundational lab under you with $100 million of training compute to give a lot of like reasoning things. And I think when it was posted on the ARC-AGI as well, it says you also got it to get like $8.42 per task or something, which is significantly less than the $1,000 that GPT-5 thinking cost. You want to tell us how? Is it a secret? Like what's going on?
Yeah.
So
is it running some? Have you done game development before?
So maybe I can start with my first solution. 9 months ago, this was actually pre-thinking models. So this was, we were living in a world where you had to basically build your own test time compute, right? Because the models weren't inherently thinking, so you had to basically force them to think. So the solution I came up with for the first one is to have Sonnet 3.5 at the time generate Python functions that would basically code the transformation function. I would have Sonnet 3.5 generate 200 transform functions in Python, and then I would execute each of those functions on the training examples. And then if I ended up getting 100% on all the training examples, I'm pretty sure that this Python function is correct. And then I'll run that Python on the test example and then submit that. And then if it wasn't correct, I would basically take the top, let's say 10 or 20 Python programs, put them back into a prompt, describe how they got the training examples wrong, and then have Sonnet update its Python transformation. So basically generating a ton of Python programs, like thousands per example. And again, you kind of had to do this because you had to make up for the fact that the models weren't thinking. They were just basically blurting out. I prompted them a chain of thought, but again, this was pre-RL chain of thoughts. The models were not really thinking for themselves. So that actually worked pretty well in ARC-V1. The problem is ARC-V2 is much more complicated. Again, humans can solve it easily, but it's very hard to describe ARC-V2 tasks with Python. How do you describe, this model must be symmetrical, and if it has 3 holes in one and 2 holes in another, then the top right should be orange, right? Python starts to get quite brittle. And so this was the problem going from ARC-V1 to ARC-V2. And so what I discovered is we can swap Python for natural language.
To say, I think it's great to give some introduction to what is so hard exactly on these questions. I was heavy on ARC-1, so I just know intuitively why is it so hard and so easy to humans, but I think it's going to be really interesting hearing it from you, because just to give people perspective, like, why is this so hard? It's just some grid of colors. It is. So
first of all, I would say it literally isn't hard, right? For humans, it is not hard. So what's weird about language models is when they're not trained on a certain distribution, they are not great at generalizing. And I think this is the core of Francois's thesis, but it's also a thesis that I generally agree with, which is today, when we train language models, they're very good on distributions they were trained in, but there aren't many grids online and there aren't many examples of solving grids. And then finally, the test set is totally withdrawn from the internet, right? So you can't train on the answers for ARC-AGI. And so what you find is language models, when you're asking questions outside of the distribution, are very bad at giving coherent reasoning traces. And this is actually the fundamental blocker to general intelligence, which is when you ask models questions outside of the training distribution, it's almost like an adversarial example. They struggle to reason about it. And I think that's because the reasoning that language models are trained to do is always reasoning in the domains that they were trained on. So they can reason really well in math. They can reason really well in science, but it's like that reasoning is fused to that domain, which is unlike humans, right? We have this reasoning engine which generalizes, which means that, you take Einstein, you give him a task he's never seen before, totally out of his distribution, he'll still reason about it properly and logically and coherently. That is not the case for language models today. And so fundamentally, why is it hard for language models is because ARC-AGI grids are not in the training distribution. And again, fundamentally, like what it means to have general intelligence is that you're able to adapt to situations and data that you've never seen before. And this gets to the heart of AGI and ARC-AGI. And so, yeah, fundamentally, I think that is why it's so hard for them. But one interesting thing is language models are climbing, right? They're getting better at this, but they're not getting better at the same rate they are in science, math, other domains. And so I think the next big frontier is how can we basically inject like reasoning that will actually generalize in these models and not just be excellent in a specific domain.
So AGI v2 was definitely more difficult. And then I think you're saying you switched from programming Python into kind of like a language, but you also switched the models because the models grew since the last time you tried it, right? Like the models are, well, they were multimodal when you started this already, but there were no test time compute. But now the models are significantly better at like generalization. And so you chose Grok for this.
Yeah,
how did you get to choosing Grok? Did you try multiple ones? Tell us about the process of getting to Grok, because the Space Uncle, as we like to call him here on the show, really liked the fact that you chose Grok, and it's like, yeah, Grok the 5 is testing, blah, blah, blah. So he really leaned into the fact that like Grok, he likes when Grok wins versus other labs. And in this case, it did win significantly. How do you choose this? What other models did you try with? I would love to hear. Meanwhile, folks who are just listening, I'm trying to solve example 18 of the 1000 easy set, and it's very easy. Just like you need to figure out the template. For humans, very easy. I can realize how for models this is confusing as hell. So please.
So the first thing I'll say is this is not a multimodal challenge the way I did it. I actually started by giving base 16 images of grids as well as their ASCII representations to the model. That did not help performance. So I don't give images of grids anymore. So my solution they just see the ASCII grids, like 2-dimensional in plain text grids. I tested every single model, every thinking model, GPT-5 High, Opus 4.1, thinking, everything. It happens to be that Grok 4 has really robust long-form reasoning coherence on tasks it wasn't trained on. That I'm actually not exactly sure why. There must be something in their training distribution that has allowed them to do this, or maybe that they've scaled RL in such a way that they've been able to kind of like inject these reasoning circuits in various places in the weights. But yeah, so really just empirically, Grok 4 is basically double the performance on thinking about and reasoning about grid transformations. So and you can see that actually in the raw scores of Grok 4 versus GPT-5 High. It's about double, I think, on ARC-V2.
That's stunning. I remember when they posted Grok 4 kind of training stuff. You guys remember this? They showed how much RL was like went into Grok 3 or like 3 point whatever, and then they showed Grok 4 RL was like half of the whole GPU time that's spent on Grok 4, and looks like it resulted in, Grok 4 is also, some folks code with it. It's great for code. Some folks like chat with it, etc. But on the actual tasks, like I think folks are still getting to maybe Sonnet, but mostly it's between Sonnet and like OpenAI now tries with Codex. But it does look like they have cracked some stuff there towards like visual intelligence. But you're saying, just to make sure that I understand you used to send multimodal images and grids so the model could see them and try to figure them out. Now you're sending a JSON representation of what needs to be done, and then the output you get is also like programmatic, and then you just convert it into like, how does the conversion to text happen, where it happens, and how the conversion back happens when you submit?
Yeah, so you get the input as JSON grid, right? Mm-hmm. So this is represented as numbers, a JSON 2D array, 2D integer array. And that's how I give it to the model. It basically performance increases a little bit when you give it the grid, the actual base 64 image as well. But the problem is it's much more expensive. And this is partially a game of compute efficiency. It just was not worth sending the image in the end. Fundamentally, the bottleneck is not that they don't see the grid well. It's that they are not able to reason well over the grid. And you can see when you look at the traces, they're weirdly logically incoherent. It's really like an adversarial example because it's out of their training distribution, and they're like, oh, I don't know how to reason about this.
Because it says like $8 per task, but I'm assuming like at least 100 tasks or something like this.
So yeah, there are 100 tasks, and it was around $8 per task on ARC-V1.
Alrighty. And so we're seeing on the screen kind of the revision prompt example. This is kind of what you submitted, what you arrived at. Could you tell us what specific prompt engineering you got iterating through this? What things you noticed that work for Grok that don't work for other things? I'm sure people would like to learn from your experience getting the model to do this for you.
Yeah, I find just being really clear and concise with the instructions are best. And then, you'll try out a few, you'll realize, oh, this line needs to be updated a bit. It was really a lot of iteration, right? Like it started with a very small prompt and then just gradually added lines and lines until the performance was starting to asymptote. And then at that point,
did you write the prompt yourself, or did you have AI help you improve it?
No DSPY. I started writing it myself, and I'm sure maybe it's like 75% written by AI, just because I'm iterating with GPT-5 open next to me.
Cool.
But yeah, I mean, it's more or less written by me.
GPT-5 prompt iteration is something we called out on the show before, and definitely folks should know. GPT-5 is an incredible prompt engineer. Incredible for itself and other models as well, especially if you give it examples of how you want things to look at. Jeremy, I wanted to ask you, maybe you saw this, maybe you don't. Christian Szegedy, do you know the guy Christian Szegedy? Do you know who this is? He used to work at XAI. He had, and I keep posting about this because I just absolutely love this. He basically had almost a competition with Francois Chollet about how we'll see these models go forward. And recently, I think they released Mathematica, and I think we covered it on the show. I'm going to try to pull up the tweet. He had a public bet with Francois. I don't know if they actually got to a bet, but he had a public statement that by the end of 2025, we'll see the current set of ARC-AGI fully saturated. And it does seem like he's on track with with kind of the releases that you had, because you're getting at 80% with the current iteration of Grok. I don't know if Grok 5 is going to drop by the end of 2025, but like I know that they keep training this. I know that like other labs are definitely fighting for this. Do you think that his prediction is likely to be true? Do you think that like we'll get to full saturation of at least the first iteration?
Of ARC-V1, I think that's likely. Yeah, and by full saturation, do we mean like 85%?
Said 95%. This is
95%. I wouldn't be surprised on ARC-V1. In ARC-V1, the hardest challenge is just not that hard. And so the search space for finding the right transformation function is small enough that I think, with a few percentage point differences, updates to Grok or GPT-5 thinking, we should be able to get there. It's also worth noting I left a decent amount of compute on the table. You're technically allowed to spend $10,000 of compute. I guess I spent 800, right? So I probably would have inked out a few more percentage points if I maxed out the compute. But for a bunch of reasons, actually mostly the XAI API stability, I didn't do that.
Wow. So if Elon Musk is listening to this, give Jeremy some more XAI credits. We want to see that higher score.
Also, to your point about DSPY and the prompt engineering, these tasks are quite expensive to run. I think DSPY would work well on less expensive problems. You could easily, if you're running in like an automated loop, you could be spending thousands and thousands of dollars just to optimize a few lines. For this task in particular, you really have to it's almost like an art, right? You only get so many runs before you run out of money.
So that's why I need a sponsor. Go ahead, Nissan.
I hope you recorded the data in and out, because then you can try and train a small model. Like I think the challenge will end up going to like what's the phone or the 1B model that can actually solve it next. 80% is pretty much the benchmark. To find a new benchmark. But it would be interesting to see how much you can make. Like, what's the smallest model you can make that scores above 50%?
Jeremy, just before you kind of answer this, just to give you more context, at the beginning of the show, we talked about Isaac, which is a 2 billion parameter model that does like incredible things compared to like GPT-5, I want to say, in pointing. And we also talked about a fine-tuned DeepResearch, like a 3 billion active parameter model that does deep research at the level of like GPT-5 as well. We're absolutely in the realm of, smaller models getting incredible on specific tasks with RL. And so like, I think this is the context on Nissan's question. Do you predict that something like the task that you have been doing with Grok, given that it's a very specialized and there is a reward function actually that you can run. You can literally test whatever the rollouts and see if it makes sense. Do you predict that smaller models will be able to do this in a very specific way?
Yeah. So first of all, I can say for testing, every single input output when I'm testing it is saved to my Postgres database. So I have, like 100, almost maybe 1 million traces at this point for this exact idea. I personally, when I've trained the small models, have found that they're just not good enough at all, which is interesting. But I plan on doing this as a more serious project at some point in the future. So I think I actually am not so optimistic about solving ARC. I think you probably need 70B model or maybe some OEs with fewer active parameters. I think they have the capacity to do that maybe by the end of this year to get, frontier scores. I think there's a lot of fundamentally, the tasks are not hard, and you just need deductive coherence over a paragraph of text. So for sure, 2B models are physically capable of doing it. Whether or not we have the right training techniques is another question. So I would say I'm pessimistic for the 2B model to be able to beat ARC-V1 this year, but I can absolutely see in the future how that's possible. It would also certainly be overfit.
Do they need to have very, very long reasoning traces? I think you mentioned that was the long reasoning coherency. That's probably why the small models don't have enough meat in them to just carry that on.
Right. I think they don't have enough. Their logic circuits are just not baked.
Awesome. Well, Jeremy, we're coming up on 2 hours on the show. We wanted to, first of all, congratulate you on this incredible result. Second of all, thank you for coming and telling us how it's actually done. I think a lot of folks really wanted to know. You had a great blog post. We'll add this to the show notes. The folks can go and dive in. We have this button here with applause for folks who open source data, open source models. If you do choose so, and you want to come back and say, hey, the data set is now open source, you guys can train and do RL, definitely the button is warm and ready for some applause. Thank you so much for coming and telling us about how this is done. It's very, very interesting. We heard about ARC-AGI. Multiple companies are using this to show the out of distribution thinking for a context for their models. And it's great to see how the sausage is made. I appreciate your time here. Thank you for coming up. We will add your blog post, and anything anyone you want to shout out, anything you want to say, where folks can find you, etc. Feel free to
No, thank you. I appreciate it. And also the code is open source that I used. So you can find it on GitHub. If you're interested in post-training, pre-training, frontier language models, definitely check out Reflection AI, DM me, or apply on our website.
Amazing. Awesome. Jeremy, thank you so much. And folks, we have just we're a little bit over 2 hours, but now we have a few more things to talk about, including examples. But I will just point fingers at some stuff that you guys definitely need to check out. NBER and OpenAI together released this incredible paper, super in-depth paper of how people use ChatGPT. It's timed at July, they issued it at September 2025, but it's timed at from November 22 to July 2025. So almost 2.5 years, about early adopters. And they have a bunch of cool insights here. Early adopters were disproportionately male, but the gender gap has narrowed dramatically, a bunch of stuff like this. And I want to just shout out a few things. There's this graph that shows the distribution of tasks. Nistan, we talked about this graph publicly somewhere. This is 700 million weekly users back in July, and we're extrapolating. We're saying OpenAI is about probably to hit 1 billion users, weekly users of ChatGPT by end of this year. The projections are there as well. And this graph, the width of the graph is as how many proportionate segments there is. So 28% is practical guidance, 6% is multimedia or something, 7.5% technical help tasks. And then each kind of column is broken down to category. So tutoring or teaching is 10% of all uses of ChatGPT. So that's 70 million people weekly using ChatGPT for tutoring. How to advise is 8.5%. There's create an image is 4.2%. I'm assuming that will grow as well. Games and role play is only 0.4%. So not many people are playing games and role play with AI. But relationships and personal reflection is 1.9%. Listen, you talked about this. And it seems low for ChatGPT. But calculating this, it's around 70 million people weekly having relationships and personal discussions with ChatGPT. So that's quite a lot. Anything that you guys remember standing out and people talked about the use of ChatGPT?
That's pretty crazy, the entire thing. I mean, I think it pretty much shows that we are in a bubble, us using AI and so on. And you actually see this over the distribution of, the entire population is pretty much the case. 700 weekly active users is a lot of people. And things are surprising. I mean, that's pretty surprising. I wouldn't imagine that these are the usages that on the first thing that people do, what was it at 28%? What was it, guidance or That's surprising.
Yeah.
I mean,
I like that. That shows that people are using what the models are good for. And I just wanted to say I was trolling about telling people that they're talking to the slop, because I'm even making companion apps for seniors with dementia and trying to figure out how to keep them in the conversation. So yeah, my surprise here is that they've been trained to be companions, but not a lot of people use them that way. So I just think that is interesting, as somebody's just like getting up and just telling it, hi, how's your day? Get my plans done. This is how everyone imagined they would work, including myself, but that's not how we're using it. We're just kind of using them as smart search engines or task delegation type of tools and problem solvers. So yeah, it's pretty, these things are hard. It's hard to predict how users are going to use it. But overall, I am happy that people are using them for problem solving. That's what they're best at.
It's hard to predict how they're going to use them, but trajectory-wise, it's easy to predict. So here's the one line that the summary gave me. ChatGPT traffic is on pace to rival Google search in daily message volume as early as next year. 750 million weekly active users in July, and if you remember, July is before return to school. So now everybody returns to school, they need to do homework, they go back to these AIs more often than they want. Message volume hit 2.6 billion per day as of June, 6 times bigger than the year before. It's absolutely insane. And the usage is doubling every 6 to 8 months since launch.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm surprised not to see larger percentage of people talking about personal stuff with ChatGPT. We hear about it a lot, and pretty much anyone you talk to feel that, they ask ChatGPT or any other AI personal stuff, and we don't see these too much in data. What I really like the most, the vast majority of people use it for things like, how do I do, I need to know how to do something. I took a picture of a sink and asked ChatGPT, how do I fix this? And so on, because I just don't know, man. I mean, it's not the thing I do, but I managed to fix it because, I don't know, O3 just told me how to do it. And that's great. Moreover, search, absolutely amazing to see how huge percentage of usage is just search, or how do I do the thing, which is basically also search and editing. Yeah, I think pretty much half of all of ChatGPT usage is just me asking it to fix my broken English. I think that's a lot. That's a huge percentage. I hope they can duplicate that.
ChatGPT, when they added memory features, I asked ChatGPT, what are the most embarrassing things I asked you? And it told me, bro, you could boil an egg. You don't have to tap into the intelligence, of the world to learn that boiling egg is 10 minutes in boiling water. All right, folks, we have to move on because we're already past time, but it's just it's impossible not to tell you about some of this stuff, right? So we'll just run through super quick about incredible breakthroughs. We mentioned this multiple times already, but just for folks who are still with us, OpenAI aced the 2025 ICPC World Finals. This is the reasoning algorithmic competition. This is super, super hard. They have 5-hour constraints to build the solutions, and basically we've got to a point where GPT-5 on its own is superhuman level at the best coding people in the world compete at this competition, and they are not always able to solve all questions within the 5-hour limit. And this year they had an AI separate track, so virtual first place, not actual first place. GPT-5 was together paired with the experimental reasoning model, which we're probably going to get released at some soon. And GPT-5 on its own, the regular GPT-5, the one that we have access to it, solved 11 out of 12 of the strongest, hardest reasoning problems. This is Olympiad level competition for algorithmic code. It's incredible. Everybody who from OpenAI who talks about how hard this is, and everybody not from OpenAI, math Olympiads and people like this, they're all balking and they're this is just unbelievably hard, and it's incredible achievement that we got there. So we got to a superhuman coding level with the levels. The same model that Yam uses to fix his correct grammar now wins 11 out of 12 of the hardest hardware, software, and algorithmic questions. It's quite incredible. Super speed updates on ChatGPT as well. They have released some conversation about teenage use as well as they're thinking about getting to Google level. And we know that Zuck and his billions of users also had teenage problems. Wolfram mentioned this in the beginning. We'll add this to the show notes if you're interested in how OpenAI is going to treat usage while giving you as an adult more power to use, treat adults as adults and not just refuse anything. They're also thinking about how the teenage use in the apps kind of goes against their principles.
He also said something very important, I think, because he compared conversations with AI to conversations with medical or legal specialists. So that is an important concept. I hope that is getting more traction, because people are opening up to AI so much and having all these discussions, it needs specific special protection.
No. And then the last thing, update on OpenAI. Thank you all by the way, and OpenAI adds thinking budgets to ChatGPT app. So now when you use ChatGPT-5 thinking, you can decide if you want like standard or extended. If you're pro tier, you also get light and heavy thinking modes. Basically, fairly resembling the API, although API had 3 and now they have four versions, because they heard complaints that people say that GPT-5 is thinking for too long, and it does sometimes, and you want the best intelligence. You don't want the router auto. You want it to think, but you don't want it to think for like 5 minutes for how long to boil an egg, etc. So updates to ChatGPT-5 app. Folks, I will skip Humo just because we don't have time for this. So Humo is this human-centric multimodal video example from ByteDance. It's incredible because it's still very small. It's a small model and it only generates like 4 seconds of video, but it's very general in the sense where like you can provide sound and you can provide text. And I think multimodal video models, human-centric video models so far, you couldn't provide text as well. So you would provide the frame of the first image, and they would take this image and animate this image as though from that frame. This model does it differently, and it's very interesting to know how it understands the subject reference from this image, but doesn't necessarily treat this as the first frame. So you can take a picture of me and put it in a scene somewhere, or replace somebody else, but it doesn't treat me as the first frame. So it doesn't only animate this. It's like a unique approach, and then you can also change it with text. You cannot give it like me speaking and have it animate like we have, the animated faces. So like Hedra and others. So this is kind of a combination of all of this, but it only works on like very short segments so far. But the direction is super cool, and I think we'll see incredible stuff from that space. So this is Humo from ByteDance, and it's open source, and they gave the recipe to folks. The last thing that we have to talk about is World Labs presenting Marble. Marble is just absolutely incredible. We talked about World Labs before. We showed their examples, but the fidelity of this recent release is just absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. You can see from one image, or maybe a 360 image, a full-on world generated. We talked about Genie 3 before, so this is lower fidelity than Genie 4. Genie 4 is like VO3 level world that you can control and play. That was built on simulating kind of games, so that feels like a game. You can jump, you have a character, etc. This is one picture to generate a world, and the consistency in this is just absolutely remarkable. And in order to show this, I actually got access, and I'm very, very happy that I did. And I took Wolfram's background. Wolfram's sitting in this very cool kind of like spaceshipy type thing. So I asked him in the beginning of the show to send me an image, and behind the scenes, I ran this with Marble 01 Mini, the lower version of the world. So let's take a look at the world. Okay, so basically I provided one image, and you can see this image of a spaceship. You can see the lower quality because I used the lower quality model.
That's 3D. This is 3D model? Oh, no. See.
No, it is 3D. It's you can walk around objects. You can see it's not a 3D model. No. It's a generative model that generates Gaussian splats. So Gaussian splats is kind of like how to create like a 3D scene from a thing. So you can see if we like leave the perspective that I provided it, you can see that like we can see a bunch of artifacts. So we can see like what's behind there. I do believe that this thing, from this thing behind, was fully generated from this thing up front.
Exactly.
Right? So like this is the perspective of where you sit.
This smaller
turn
model,
around.
right?
This is absolutely, this looked like
still very cool. Very
cool.
cool.
And I think the persistence of the fact that like the chairs are, I'm sorry for going all the place. The chairs are the same place where the chairs are after you like go around. So this is like, it generates a 3D scene based on one image, and you can provide like 3D images. The thing that I wanted to show, I want to see if I have it. Folks are using this to create very cool kind of 3D consistent scenes, because now if you don't move too much, you can have like a very consistent like character scenes, and you can provide like different angles to those scenes, and then provide this back to like Seedream or something. Very, very cool. So this is World Labs Marble, and we've talked about Reve, and we've talked about Hunyan Espero. I think we've covered pretty much everything. Folks, if you missed any part of the show, just a reminder, we're available as a podcast on ThursdAI.news, on Substack, and everywhere you get your podcast, so you can re-listen to a conversation if you missed it with Jeremy, or our analysis of things, or the things that we did. The recording is also up on YouTube as well. We're here every Thursday. We're going to be here next week to talk about whatever crazy things that happen. Huge thanks goes out to Weights and Biases from CoreWeave, the sponsor of this podcast for the past almost 2 years. And a huge thanks goes to Wolfram, Jan Peleg, and Niston for being here from week to week and telling you guys all about the world of AI as we follow it. So with this, I will just say, as we were talking, Wolfram, here's your 3D world, and we're gonna just like leave it at that. And it's
very cool.
And it's really, really cool because it generated all the images. Alrighty, folks, this has been ThursdAI, and we'll see you here next week. Bye bye.